Capricorn, welcome to your monthly horoscope for April 2026. My name's Adina. I'm an intuitive astrologer. Capricorn, this month is life changing in so many ways because you have multiple activations happening in your chart. Home and family, love, creative projects, and your work routines. There can be major turning points this month. So let's get right into it. So I do break these horoscopes down by week and I select a chart for each week so you can have a visual. As soon as we come into the month, on the first, we have the full moon in Libra. This is lighting up your 10th house of career, public reputation, what you are known for out in the world. We want to remember that full moons bring culmination, endings, and big decisions. What have you been navigating the last 6 months when it has to do with your career, when it has to do with your public reputation, when it has to do with your role as a leader or authority figure? Now is when something is coming to a head or there is a major shift taking place. If you want to take a deep dive into the full moon in Libra, you can check out the full moon forecast on my YouTube channel. I get into the chart for the full moon and all 12 rising signs. Now, on April 3rd, we have Mercury forming a trine to Jupiter. This is the final trine between Mercury and Jupiter because of that Mercury retrograde. The very first trine was the beginning of February when Mercury was in the pre shadow phase. Then Mercury formed a trine to Jupiter during the retrograde phase. And then now this is the final trine during the post shadow phase. And so, whatever is showing up at this time, it can be something you've already been sitting with or navigating for a couple of months now. Maybe you were reevaluating something, contemplating something. Maybe you heard of an opportunity or you had an important conversation, but you were sitting with it. Now is when you gain clarity, you gain understanding, and there's finally forward movement. Mercury is in your third house of communication and contracts and conversations, and Jupiter is in Cancer in your seventh house of relationships and partnerships. And so this can be good news or good opportunities around relationships or contracts. Like maybe you're signing a contract, maybe you were sitting with something and now, you're finally moving forward with that contract. Because remember, even business partnerships is in that seventh house. But you could be having, really important life changing conversations with those close one on one connections. Also on April 3rd, we have Venus forming a square to Pluto. Venus is in your fifth house of romance, passion, children, creativity, what you do that lights you up. Pluto is in Aquarius in your second house of money and self worth, your personal values, your personal finances. So when we have this square, there might be challenges with money. Pluto can initiate power and control dynamics. Venus, being the ruler of that fifth house, you may be having to address something with your children or even somebody maybe that you're dating, maybe a romantic partnership. So do be a little bit cautious on that day if you are like dating somebody new. With Venus square Pluto, Venus also rules your 10th house of career and public reputation. So there might even be something intense, challenging, that you're having to address around your career, maybe with a boss, maybe with a coworker. And then once we get to April 5th, the sun is going to form a square to Jupiter. The sun is in your fourth house of home, family, property, real estate, and emotional foundation, your private life. And Jupiter is in the seventh house of relationships. This is where there could be something intense or something that you're having to navigate around your home, around a family member, or something that you're doing in private and a close one on one connection. Squares bring tension. However, squares can also bring breakthroughs and growth, but through challenge. So there's something that is activated by a square, but you navigate it. And once you get through it, there's like growth developed or wisdom gained. This can also look like because the sun literally rules our vitality and life force energy. And sometimes when we have squares to Jupiter, this is where we have overpromised, overcommitted, or we have gotten in way over our head with something. The sun rules your eighth house of money coming in from outside resources, your partner's finances like loans, debt, taxes. This is a day to be cautious of signing up for any new loans or applying for any new loans or anything like that because you could really be getting in way over your head. This may also be when something comes to the surface, like a bill that you forgot to pay. So it's just a day to be a little bit cautious. Then on April 6th, we have Venus forming a sextile to the North Node and a trine to the South Node. This is very fated, very karmic. The lunar nodes represent our destiny. That's part of our life purpose. So when we have connections to those lunar nodes, a lot of times there is something that happens throughout that day or the day before, the day of, and the day after that kind of stands out. And if you look back, you'll realize, like, oh, okay, that's why that happened. So this is a day to just pay attention to who's coming into your world. Who are you connecting with? Who are you receiving an email from? Who's calling you? What type of information are you receiving? This could have to do with even children and pregnancy because it's in that fifth house. This could have to do with romantic connections, like maybe you see somebody online or you run into an old friend and, a month from now you end up hooking up with them or getting together with them or whatever the case is. So pay attention on this day to what's kind of showing up for you. Then we get into the second week of April, and on the 9th, we finally have Mercury leaving shadow. So we're finally done with this Mercury retrograde, which you had Mercury retrograde in your third house of your self expression, your mindset, all those things around reading, speaking, writing, also vehicles, local travel is in the third house, community, neighbors, siblings. There's a lot there, but there's something that you were reevaluating, in this area of life. And now you're finally going to gain clarity. There's finally going to be some forward movement. So whatever's been kind of stagnant, whatever you've been having to sit with, reevaluate, now you're finally going to start moving forward. Also on the 9th, we have Mars entering Aries, which is in your fourth house of home, family members, emotional foundations. So Mars in the fourth house can bring renovations possibly with your house or focusing more on your house, or it could bring issues with family members, conflict. We want to remember Mars does rule our motivation, our willpower, our drive and passion, but Mars also rules anger, aggression, and conflict. So we just want to be cautious when we're dealing with Mars energy because it really can go one of two ways. But Mars in the fourth house, maybe you're really busy at home. Maybe you're really busy doing things around the house. Maybe you're really busy with family members. Maybe you're literally, fixing your house and renovating it. Or maybe it's a really intense emotional month and you're having to navigate, a lot of childhood trauma or past trauma in some way. On the 13th, Mars is going to form a conjunction to Neptune. This is where things can get blurry, cloudy, confusing. So this is not a day to take action with anything or do anything really significant. Feel the day out, depending on how you're feeling. If you feel, sometimes I find Neptune can give us like fogginess. It's almost like we feel like we're walking in a dream. You know what I mean? It's like we don't feel normal with Neptune. Neptune really kind of puts this like fog over us. And so this is just, one of those days. If you can, maybe just don't make any really big decisions. And then on the 14th, Mercury is going to enter Aries, bringing more focus, to your private life, to your home, to your family. And then we get to the third week of April, and this is the most important week for you, Capricorn. On the 16th, we have the Sun forming a conjunction to Chiron and Mercury forming a conjunction to Neptune. This is all in your fourth house. So I really feel like this is a month where you are really moving through a lot of deep-seated emotions, whether it has to do with your childhood, your parents, or something that you have been navigating behind the scenes alone that not a lot of people know about. There's the potential for a deep release in this month if you truly do the work and you heal. When the sun forms a conjunction to Chiron, we can be triggered. Chiron rules our traumas, our vulnerabilities. This is where there can be wounds surfacing around feeling misunderstood, not being seen, especially when it had to do with you when you were a child, with your parents growing up. This can be a month where you really heal And having Mercury here, maybe you're really having those hard conversations. However, when Mercury forms a conjunction to Neptune, this is where you just want, remember, Neptune makes things cloudy. This is where we can experience brain fog, lack of direction. So, again, it is a day, this is a good day to dive into your creativity and intuition and spiritual practice, but not necessarily a good day to make any important decisions or move forward with anything, because a lot of times we're just not seeing things quite clearly. And then on the 17th, we have the new moon in Aries at 27 degrees. And this is a time to set intentions around home, family, property, real estate, what you do want to release emotionally. What is it? What intentions do you want to set for the next 6 months? You can initiate some deep seated emotional transformation and healing at this time. And then on April 19th, the sun is going to enter Taurus, bringing more focus to your fifth house of children and creativity, passion, romance, hobbies, interests. So you start to focus more on what lights you up. Maybe you start diving into some creative projects or hobbies. Mars is also going to form a conjunction to Saturn in Aries on that same day. And this is a day that we just have to be very cautious. This is both malefic planets forming a conjunction. So we don't want to be making any really big decisions on this day. It's just a day to have some awareness. This is in your fourth house of home and family. And so this could be when something really comes to a head with a family member or something that you're navigating around your house, something that you're navigating behind the scenes. If you've been having issues around the house with anything, this is when something could break, or you know what I mean? This is just, I don't know if I want to say a breaking point, but something is coming to a head here. And Mars is the most powerful planet in this conversation because Mars is at home in Aries. Mars is in its comfort zone. Saturn is not. Saturn does not like to be in Aries. So Saturn wants responsibility and commitment and discipline and boundaries, and Mars doesn't. Mars is like, no, we're going ahead. We're doing this. And that's where we get this like conflict. And so it's a day to just be a little bit cautious. And then on the 20th, we've got Mercury forming a conjunction to Mars. And again, this is adding to, possible arguments, possible conflict, possible feeling, impatient, impulsive. But also remember that Mars rules passion. So this is where maybe you're just really busy at the home. You're really busy getting things done around your house. You've got tons of motivation behind the scenes and you're getting things done. It can also show up in that way. But we have to look at both spectrums. We always have to look at the negative and the positive to just be aware and just be cautious and know that, it can be one of two things, right? And then we get to the fourth and final week of April. And on the 23rd, Venus is going to form a conjunction to Uranus. At this point, Uranus is still going to be in Taurus in your fifth house of children, creativity, passion, romance, hobbies, interests. And so this is where something really sudden can show up with a child or creative project, romantic connection. Remember, Uranus likes to bring things kind of unexpectedly out of the blue. And then Venus is going to enter Gemini, which is your sixth house of work, health, and daily routine on the 23rd or 24th, depending on your time zone. And then on the 25th, Uranus is entering Gemini, and that is really big. Uranus is entering Gemini and is going to completely shift and change this area of your life up over the next 8 years. Remember that Uranus is an outer planet, so this is not change that is going to happen in one day, 1 week, 1 month, or even a year. This is going to be change that takes place over the next 8 years. The themes and topics associated with the sixth house are going to look very different, and you're going to have a very different approach to, work, your health, and your daily routine than you have now. 8 years from now, you're going to look back and you'll have an understanding of how Uranus has completely shaken up that area. And it's not necessarily like bad shakeup. Uranus is the planet of awakening, enlightenment. So Uranus can come into the sixth house and maybe, completely shift your health, routine. Maybe you decide that you want to get super healthy. You want to focus on your health. You want to learn how to take care of your body and start natural ways or, whatever the case is, but you're doing things just differently than you are now. And that's the whole point of Uranus. But Uranus is the awakener. And so it's kind of a bit exciting. I will also be making a separate forecast going deep into the Uranus Gemini transit and what we can expect collectively and individually. So make sure you watch for that. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Now, also on the 25th, the sun is going to form a square to Pluto. So the sun is in your fifth house of home, family, property, real estate. Pluto is in your second house of your money, your finances, your material possessions. This can bring up power and control dynamics, possibly with your money, with your finances, especially too, because the sun rules your eighth house of your partner's finances and money coming in from outside resources. So there could be like some power struggles around finances in some way. This could also have to do with deep-seated fears, psychological transformation. This is the second house is also your self-worth, your personal values. And so this is a day that could feel a little bit intense. Definitely pay attention to what is surfacing on this day. And then on April 26th, we have Mercury squaring Jupiter. Jupiter is in your seventh house of relationships and one-on-one connections, and Mercury is in that fourth house. And so this is where you could be having some really hard conversations with a partner with a one-on-one connection. This is where something could come to a head. This can also feel like mental overwhelm because Jupiter is also the co-ruler of your third house of your mindset and, thinking, reading, writing, speaking, self-expression. So this could feel like you are overthinking or you're mentally overwhelmed. Like maybe you have a lot on your plate on this day. And then also on the 26th, Venus is going to form a sextile to Neptune. Venus is in your sixth house here, and Neptune is in your fourth. So, this is great for creative projects, romance, intuition, spirituality. Where this could become challenging is if you are dating, if you're meeting somebody. Venus is the ruler of that fifth house of romantic, romance and dating. And Neptune blurs boundaries. Neptune tends to give us rose-colored glasses so that we're seeing people for who we want them to be, not necessarily who they are. There could be deceptive energies. There could be illusion energies. Now, on the 28th, we have Venus forming a trine to Pluto. This is very transformational. Venus rules that fifth house and your 10th house as well of career and public reputation. So there could also be a lot around your career too with these energies. Venus forming a trine to Pluto can be very deep, very intense, very transformational. You could be shifting something on a very deep level in some way. Something could be just changing very significantly. This could have to do with your work, your health, your daily routines. It could have to do with children, creativity, passion, romance, hobbies, and interests. And it could have to do with your career and your public reputation and possibly authority figures. And so those areas of life at the end of the month could be going through some deep transformation. And then on the 29th, we end the month with Venus forming a T square to the lunar nodes, which is interesting, right? It's like at the end of the month, we have a choice to make. The T square is really where you're at a crossroads and you have to take a path. Do you go left or do you go right? And it's very fated, very karmic. And the decision you choose changes the direction and the course of your future. That is what these T squares are. And Venus being in your sixth house of work, health, daily routine, but also again, the ruler of your fifth and your 10th, this can have to do with your work, your career, your life direction. Now, this can also have to do with something you've been navigating since January 2025 when the lunar nodes entered when the lunar nodes entered Virgo and Pisces, that's when they officially shifted into Virgo and Pisces. And so usually when we're talking about the lunar nodes, there's like a story playing out, and every time there's activations, there could be something more to that story. So you have the South Node in your ninth house of higher education, higher knowledge, long distance travel, your belief systems, and the third house of self expression and your siblings, cousins, local community, neighbors, neighborhood. So there's some changes going on, and I find the changes here can be more internal sometimes, not necessarily external, is what I've noticed. So this could be a day where there's a massive shift and you have to let go of something. Capricorn, April is a major turning point month. There's major themes and transformation taking place around career, your home and family, possibly your living situation, new love and romantic connections, possibly, or leveling up within a partnership, lifestyle changes. And the most important days for you this month is April 1st. Watch career changes on this day. April 17th, watch for moving and home changes. April 19th, expect responsibilities to change. April 23rd, expect some surprises around love. And April 25th, expect major work changes. And April 25th, expect major changes when it has to do with work and your career. This month is about restructuring your home life, your love life, your daily routine, and your lifestyle. I really hope this horoscope helps you navigate the energy for this month. Let me know in the comments below how you make out. If you would like to book a one-on-one pre-recorded reading with me, I will have all the information in the description below. I structure my one-on-one readings the same way I structure my YouTube videos. And so you will have your chart here, and I demonstrate how I am interpreting the energy and putting the pieces together. So not only is it a reading, but it is a teaching and a learning tool that you can keep forever. So if you are interested in that, you can order the birth chart masterclass, solar return, lunar return. That will all be in the description below. Also, come and join me on Patreon, join the Cosmic Circle. I am rebuilding my social media presence. I also have a brand new podcast, which will have bonus episodes on Patreon for my Patreon members. And my podcast is about healing from toxic relationships, overcoming narcissistic abuse. I talk all about my experience, what I went through last year, what happened to my business online, and why I'm rebuilding. If you want to check out the podcast is on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, even on YouTube on this channel, Podbean, and then I have bonus episodes on Patreon, as well as PDF guides and support for others going through this type of thing. If you listen to the podcast, you'll know what I'm talking about because I talk about my story. But yeah, if this is something that aligns with you, then come and join me. Capricorn, don't forget to subscribe if you align with my energy, like this video, if you like my content, and I will connect with you in the next one.